I once went to a car dealership and I was looking at this car. The salesman comes to me and he says, if I give you this car at the price you want, with the financing that you want, will you buy it today? I said, sure. He gives me a blank sheet of paper, puts an X on it, and he says, sign your name on the X. What was he trying to get me to do? This was a technique to get me to change my mind and to listen and to obey to what he tells me. How so? You're going to find out today. We're talking about changing people's minds. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين. أما بعد. Techniques to change people's minds. One of the things psychologists tell you is to change someone's mind, you need to change their physical position. If someone is, let's say, seated and he keeps refusing what you're telling him, get him to stand or move from that place to another place. And that will help him. When he changes his physical position, it will help him change his mental position as well. They say if the mind is fixed, the body is fixed. Does that really work? Actually, we have a hadith like that, and you probably thought of it immediately about anger. The Prophet ﷺ, what does he instruct when you're angry? That if you're standing, you sit down, and if you're sitting, you lie down. Why is that? Changing the position that you're in. There is a huge link for us as human beings. A huge link between our bodies and our minds. And you've heard stories of someone getting bad news and they get a heart attack immediately. Okay, what does the heart have to do with the news, the information that came into their mind? There's a big link, that's why. Yeah. So for example, stomach ulcers, or people being nervous, your nervous system is affected from what happens up here. So that means there's a huge link between the mind and the body. And as Muslims, we should be very well aware of this. Why? Because in Salah, the positions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in Salah, they are conducive to getting that spiritual/mental condition that we're supposed to be in Salah. In Salah, you're supposed to feel impoverished in front of Allah, humbled, focused, humility, all that. You're supposed to feel this in Salah. The position of putting the hands over the chest like this and looking down, does that help you get those feelings? Absolutely 100%. Imagine in Salah, instead of looking down and putting your hands here, you had to put your hands on your hips and look up. Can you feel humbled like this? Just try it then. Just put your hands like this and look up and try to feel humbled. You couldn't. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already gave us the best physical position that will match the desired spiritual/mental condition to be in. I'll tell you an interesting story. There was one da'i and he actually went to a church and it was interfaith. It was him and like 9 different nuns, just him and the nuns. And they're going back and forth, having dialogue and discussion. Then at some point it was time for salah. So he said, excuse me, it's time for prayer, I have to pray. So they said, we'll pray behind you. Whatever, just for fun. So he said, okay, just do as I do. So the lady stood behind him and he's praying his salah and they're just imitating him. When the salah was over, one of them came to him and she said, for 20 years, I've been searching for the best physical position to be in that matches the spiritual condition I'm supposed to be in. And I could never find it until following you now in Salah. So Salah is already one of the great examples of that. The link between how we're supposed to be here and our body. Again, do we really need this explained? So let's say if you have an exam and we hang you upside down and give you the book and say study. Can you study well? Why not? Your eyes are still seeing the letters and you can read and flip the pages upside down. You can't study because it's not comfortable to be upside down. So there's a huge link between your body and your mind. And I think you should be convinced at this point. But if you're stubborn, the psychologists say that be in a good mood, okay? Find a time when you're in a good mood. And then walk around frowning. Just hold a frown and keep frowning. You don't have to think of anything negative. Just frown. Or sit in a position where you're like hunched over and just keep frowning. They said do that for a few minutes. And then when you come out of that, you will be in a worse mood. Even though you didn't think of anything bad, but you will be in a worse mood. You can try the opposite. Be in any, even a regular mood, and just have a big smile and hold it for 2-3 minutes. And when you're done with those 2-3 minutes, you will find yourself to be in a better mood just by smiling. So I think let's put an end to this. We've established there is a big link between the body and the mental condition. So if someone's being stubborn, get them to move. Now, look, you're free to think, I don't think that works. But actually, you're not free to think that. Don't think that. You're only free to think that if you tried it multiple times and it never works. You got to try it first. I keep saying you have to try these techniques first. So maybe one day someone's being stubborn and just refusing. It could be your child, it could be a friend, stubborn and refusing to budge on an issue. Get them to physically move, and there's a greater chance. We're not saying 100%, but a greater chance of them finally budging. That was technique number 1. Technique number 2 is called reciprocal persuasion. Sounds fancy. We've already discussed the concept of reciprocity in other episodes. So reciprocal persuasion, and it's very simple. It means that if you want to change someone's mind about an issue or a stance or what have you, if you allow him to change your mind about a subject, he will allow you to change their mind. He will reciprocate even without consciously trying to say, well, I convinced him, I'll let him convince me. Subconsciously, because you allowed him to change your mind on a subject, he will allow you to change his mind on a subject. And this is a very effective technique if you use it properly. One time I was having a discussion with a brother who insists that aliens exist. Okay? Now realistically, we don't have any clear evidence to say aliens exist, and we don't have any clear evidence to say they don't exist. What we do have at best would be anecdotal evidence. So since we don't have any clear evidence, there's no need for you to be insistent or really strict on a position either way. I personally don't believe there are any beings living in outer space, okay, like intelligent beings. But I'm also flexible. It's not, I haven't been there and came back and said, well, I found nothing. So therefore, I don't have to be so strict on it. All I wanted to get out of this discussion between me and the brother is I wanted him to walk away a bit more relaxed. And it's very simple. Using the same technique, the way I did it was that he made some valid points. Again, not strong points, but acceptable, plausible. So I accepted some of his points, and I verbally announced to him that yes, actually, you know what, I like that point, and I could be convinced with that. That's a convincing point. When he saw my flexibility in that I allowed myself to be convinced by him, I allowed him to change my mind without even realizing it. He allowed me to change his mind on a couple of positions, and when we left that gathering, he left a bit more relaxed and not so insistent that there are beings in outer space. How would you be so insistent? How would you be so sure? Unless you got an email from one of them, correct? So that was reciprocal persuasion. Now, to change someone's mind, there's another technique. And you know what? Women don't need me to explain this technique to them. If you're a wife, you use this technique all the time. Because your husband's the boss of the house, right? He decides everything. No, he doesn't. You decide everything, don't you? I know you. So you decide everything, but you let him think it's his idea. And that way he's still the boss, he still saves face, and he's still wearing the pants in the family. But you actually gave him the idea and you let him think it was his idea. So I guess sisters, since they know this, brothers, be aware when your wife manipulates you. So you give someone the idea, or you hint or give him parts of it and allow him to put it together and bring it forth as his own idea. And when it's their own idea, they're more likely to convince themselves than for you to convince them. So allow people to think the idea is theirs. Sometimes allowing people to come to their own conclusion, or as we mentioned before, set their own objectives. It all falls under this. So if I've got a group of students and I want them to change their mind on an issue, and I start to throw and give hints and allow them together collectively to come up with the change or the new concept, and they think it's their idea, and I actually guided them all the way through it. Maybe they didn't feel that. That also helps them, and it would be easier for them to change their mind if they think they came up to that conclusion versus if they think I brought them to that conclusion. Some people are just very hard to convince, and some people are very tricky. Here's a joke. It said that this guy, he was traveling, and then he ended up between two tribes that were at war with each other. So one tribe found him and they captured him, but they didn't know if he's on their side or on the other side. So they took him to the leader. They got to the leader now is in his wisdom, he's going to test him. Are you with us or are you with them? The guy, of course, he got scared. He's like, no, I'm with you. And the leader was like, I was only testing you. We are them. Kill him. Anyways, The idea is that some people are just argumentative and they don't want to accept anything. So one of the things you can do to get people to change their mind and allow them to save face, very nice technique. Let's say we're going back and forth. I'm trying to convince you on an issue. And the other person doesn't want to change their mind because they kind of, whatever reason, they would have lost the debate, lost the fight, which makes sure it's never a fight to begin with, but they don't want to change their mind. So what do? You want to ask them one more time if they've reconsidered their position. But one way to get them to reconsider is to add additional or new information. And then they can save face because now they change their mind based on this new information that you've presented, right? It allows them to say, oh, it's not like you beat me or you convinced me. Oh, I didn't know about this. Now that I know this, yes, now it makes sense. So we're going back and forth. He's not convinced. And then I give him a new piece of information. By the way, it's said that when this happened, or some study showed this, and that. And the guy's like, oh, so that's what you were saying. I misunderstood. Well, in light of this new information, yes, now I see how you're right. So it's not that you're smarter than me, but because of this new information, yes, of course, if I had this information, I would have agreed with you. All these are just ways to get people to change their mind, So to a quick recap. We said, number one, if you change someone's physical position, it'll help you change their mind. The psychologists say if the body is fixed, if the mind is fixed, the body is fixed. If the body is fixed, the mind is fixed. And we said there's a huge link which no one can deny between the mind and the body and even the physical position of the body. Number two, let them feel responsible for the idea, help them change their mind. Number three, reciprocal persuasion. I let you change my mind on an issue, and of course, don't be a hypocrite. Find something that you can agree upon, change your mind, let them know that you changed your mind, and they will reciprocate and allow you to change their mind. And number four, offer additional information before you ask them to reconsider their position, and it will allow them to save face because now they've changed their mind based on this new information, not because you're smarter than them, but we both know deep down you are smarter than them. Now, I know I began by talking about the dealership story and I was going to tell you how that works. Guess what? You're going to have to wait until the next episode, inshallah. So, thank you very much for being an attentive audience. Try the technique, inshallah azza wa jal. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa sallallahu wa barak ala mab'uth rahmatan lil alamin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.